Hello, everyone. Welcome to another forecast for the second half of September. I am Dr. Claire Moon, if I can say my name. And if you're coming back, welcome back. If you're seeing this for the first time, I am an astrologer, and we're going to talk about the next 2 weeks in terms of astrology weather, as I often call it. If you are here live, you can always look to the chat. I'm going to be checking in with that. There is about a 20-second delay. I'm not quite as good at following up with the chat on this as I am during my question and response time, which I have the second Thursday of every month. But I try to check in somewhat regularly. So if you do have questions, concerns, just let me know. Kind of a rough timeline for today. I'll probably be here for 2 hours. Come and go as you please. If you have questions and it's the replay, just put them down in the comment section. And I also will try to get back to those at some point in like the next few weeks. Let's see. I have some housekeeping stuff. We're going to talk some generalities. I'm going to do a little meditation time. And then if you don't want to do that, you can get a snack and then we'll get into all of the details proper. So, thank you again for joining me. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you would like to keep up with this. Let me see if I have any announcements. I've got a bunch of links below for most of my offerings, most of my work that's important. You can always find my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com, and it's all there. I have a beginner guide, kind of a astrology cheat sheet. If you're really new, you can go click on that. You can have that next to you if that'll help today. And one thing that I should caveat is that the best way to use this information today that you're going to get about the upcoming weather, if you want to apply it to yourself, find your rising sign. So I am more of like traditional leaning astrologer, so I do like my rising signs. If you don't have one, that's okay. Go by your sun sign. That's fine too. But usually if I'm, calling things out, it's based on that. And then once we know the rising sign, of course, then all the houses tell us what part of life this stuff is going to happen in. So if a transit happens, if there's weather that happens, it doesn't hit every part of your life. Usually, it's usually in just a few parts or one part. And there are really concrete, detailed, kind of algorithmic ways of focusing in on what is going to be affected by this transit for me personally. So of course, anytime I'm basically following the moon around and seeing how the moon is experiencing that day, astrologically speaking, that is one opinion. And of course, I can't see your whole birth chart. And the transits, all of the timing techniques, they're going to hit birth charts in really unique individual ways. So I'll try to give a spectrum of potentials and probabilities, and we can get kind of a fuzzy outline of the future. So that as it goes, the word archetypes are like themes. The themes we can get pretty specific with astrology, right? But the details, the facts, I'll never be able to predict those. So for instance, if I see themes of conflict coming or something, oh no, conflict. That could be in a sports game where there's competition. Now, if I know there's a competition or a conflict or some type of theme like that coming, I can't tell who the sports players are. I can't tell, where they're playing the game necessarily. It is that broader, fuzzier outline. So just to give people an idea of my philosophical approach, that's a little bit of it. Let me get oh my gosh, I don't even have my software up. That shows you how much I have myself together. Uh, but let's look at the chart and get this party started. And I guess I'll start with my dates of interest. Now that we kind of know a little bit more about how best to use this info for each of us and kind of our little caveats, we've got, I'm going to just repeat the month. So we've done the first 2 weeks of this. Congratulations. The 1st of September, we had Pluto going back. Oh gosh, I'm already seeing typos. Mercury's out of their post-shadow period. This is just pure me. On the 1st of September, Pluto re-entered Capricorn, Uranus stationed retrograde. On the 2nd and the 3rd, we had a Virgo new moon. And that's what opened up. That's the lunation cycle we're in that is going to have this next eclipse. So we had that on the 2nd, 3rd, depending on where you were. On the 4th of September, we had Mars entering Cancer. So we've been having Mars in a new place. Mercury has re-entered Virgo, so we've been enjoying Mercury in Virgo. In a few days, on the 17th, couple days, Pisces lunar eclipse. We've talked about it a couple times. I'm going to talk about it again. On the 22nd, Sun is entering Libra and Venus is entering Scorpio. So we'll have a bit of a vibe shift there. And then finally, at the end of the month, on the 26th of September, Mercury entering Libra. So those are our dates of interest. Where is everything right now? Gosh, we are beyond. Jupiter is well beyond their square with Saturn. The next one of those is until December. Catch my workshop. We have Mars in Cancer. I have some examples. So maybe this is a good segue into reflection time. If anyone, don't feel pressured to share anything if you're here live. But if you feel like participating and you have any obvious clocking of any of these planetary things, like have you noticed in your own life Mars in Cancer? Have you noticed Jupiter and Mars being beyond Saturn? Have you noticed Pluto going back into Capricorn? Do you have any stories for me? I always like to hear them. That is the report from the ground. So I'm going to start with mine and then I'll check in on the chat. I did notice Pluto went into my 12th house again. Oh yeah, this is funny. It's almost at my rising sign or at my rising degree. I'm an Aquarius rising. And so I have Pluto re-entering back into my 12th house. And I haven't noticed too much, but I did notice I just went home recently. And the Lord of my IC is in here. The Lord of my 5th house is in here. The Lord of my 7th house is in here for me. So all of those like home and romantic things are in the 12th, the lords of that for me. You're not going to hear about it probably. I'm pretty private about it. But there has been some flare-ups of some themes. And one of them was that I found out that an ex-boyfriend, a scandalo, a scandal approaches. An ex-boyfriend from my undergrad times who was a total douche canoe. He sucked. Oh man. I found out he's been lying and he told my cousin's wife that I like broke up with him when he was about to propose to me, which is not at all the truth. Yeah, he was horrible. And then he was like, if you don't go to pharmacy school, maybe we could work it out. And I was like, no. And his mom was like, no, you're going to pharmacy school. And then I went to pharmacy school. And yeah, it was not a good ending on either of our parts. It was not good, but he was not a kind fellow. And I found out he's out there, that hidden enemy bastard, saying lies about past wrong things. Oh man, it was so that. And yeah, I don't know. That's so far been the one thing there. Okay. There is one other thing that like I definitely can't tell you about, but I think it's more of like might be an eclipse thingy. So I've kind of got two things. And then Mars and Cancer, pretty much as soon as Mars went into Cancer, and that was on the 4th of September. This is when my saga began for me to try to get my COVID and flu shots for the year. And I noticed, well, I don't have insurance because I'm in that weird, awkward area of income. So I just needed an out-of-pocket cost. And so the pharmacist who was working there alone was posted up at his computer and he was trying to wrestle me some kind of deal, which was very nice of him to do. And then another woman come up and her insurance rejected her immunizations. And she got so mad and she started yelling at the pharmacist about and like yelled, "Do you even care about public health?" And at this point, I started just recounting it. I'm having panic symptoms come in. I had to like take laps around the pharmacy. I couldn't stand there and watch it. I had to leave. And and then I came back, and then people in the waiting room were complaining because the pharmacist hadn't moved from their computer, even though they don't realize that's because he's been wrestling with all of our insurances. That's what they're doing. You don't need to move around to do cognitive labor, it turns out. And so this was like very triggering for me. And all of it just felt very Mars and Cancer, very like trying to like get things done and not being able to exert your effort, Mars, in a straightforward, effective manner. Um, a lot of efforts were getting thwarted on everybody's parts. And it was like a very tender thing. And it was about Mars protection, Mars trying to protect Cancer, mortality, life. So it made a lot of sense. Very hashtag trigger zone. So yeah, that's those are two things. What was the other thing I mentioned? Uh, the Mars Jupiter being beyond this square with Saturn. I've just noticed in general, a lot of my creative projects personally, several other things have just been moving forward with more speed. And people I know with their topics that are relevant, like things are just moving forward at more of a pace. That's been what it's been. So let me check in with this chat and see if anyone, oh, look at all these great emojis. Big fan. Good to see you. Hello. Welcome. Oh, we got someone cardinal in the house. So, cardinal rising. Um, Pluto changed signs. So for cardinal, so Aries, Libra, uh Capricorn. Oh my God. What am I missing? Aries, Libra, Capricorn, Cancer. You all might be kind of experiencing that shift in Pluto from Aquarius into your cardinal axes. You might be noticing that a little bit more than the rest of us. People appreciating my lingity. Uh, oh yeah, and okay, so if you have Mars and Cancer, um, like that, like protection, even like in Gaza, how they're giving the polio vaccine. Quite it began right before Mars got into Cancer, proper tropically speaking, but it is interesting that there's tons of people being vaccinated right now everywhere for all kinds of stuff or immunized. And Mars, protective influences internally. So Mars does action, offense, attack, but they also do defense and protection and taking actions that try to sustain life. Those are some of the constructive ways that Mars and Cancer can come out. So there are challenges, like I said, efforts moving forward, not always in a straight, direct fashion, but that doesn't mean we don't get there. And one thing that does seem to happen a bit between Mars, Cancer, Mars has that energy to begin. Um, Cardinal signs have that energy to begin. So they both kind of share that in common, at least. And Mars also doesn't mind being in a water sign, and they don't mind being in Cancer. So let's see. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for your contributions. Oh, yeah, but I wanted to say too. Okay, so Mars and Cancer babies. If you have a natal Mars in Cancer, you are having your Mars return, your Mars birthday. It takes Mars about 2 years to go around the zodiac. And once they get back, I mean, how I kind of do a simile is that when we're having our solar return, our birthday, the sun has returned to wherever it is in the birth chart. And what are we doing on our solar sun birthday? We're usually like having a party about ourselves. We're thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about, what we've been up to the last year, what we're going to be up to for the next year. Yeah, it's very like, and where's the will taking you? And I think usually we're a little bit more reflective during our birthdays about those sun solar things. So we can do that with all the planets. So for Mars and a Mars return, what types of things, martial things might a Mars in Cancer be reflecting on, then Mars's effort. So over the last 2 years, what have you all experienced in terms of like where your efforts have taken you or what your efforts are up to, at this point, thinking about now versus 2 years ago. Everything you've learned about the skillful use of effort, everything you've learned about conflict over the last 2 years, healthy conflict, not healthy conflict, um, assertion, self-advocacy, others assertion, others advocacy. Uh, and really, it can get specific to the house. So for this Aquarius rising, if it's in their sixth house, what about your health or pets or labor spaces? Or what have you learned about that? Or where has your effort taken you regarding those things over the last 2 years? Um, that's what I like to do with that. So that's worth talking about. Thank you for bringing that up. Someone, when Mars went into Cancer, they had the urge to make breakfast. It's great for their Cancer Taurus spouse. That's so beautiful. I've had more like motivation with my house topics that Cancer is in. I do notice that. My motivation, I can track it with Mars. Someone seeing that Mars Saturn square breaking up, they're noticing that. They were also noticing the passive aggressive messages with Mars in Cancer. Uh, yeah. Yeah, and like I love thinking about this because that one is so true. It can be so true that one of the many possibilities that Mars and Cancer can end up reflecting, depending on the context and the rest of the chart, is passive aggressiveness. And what is passive aggressiveness but an attempt to assert the self, stand up for one's needs, want to do that, but not necessarily feel like they can for some reason, or whatever they're perceiving or what is actually in their way of asserting themselves or having agency. And then that can come out in a number of other ways. That's at least one way to think about it. Um, so yeah, I love to think when Mars is in a water, nocturnal, kind of inward sign or a slower paced sign, we can really start to, I think, pick apart where is our energy going? Am I able to assert myself in certain situations? And how can I do that in order to get my needs met in Cancer? Because Cancer is about needs sometimes. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, Pluto is on somebody's descendant. Yeah, anytime Pluto's on the angles, midheaven, I see ascendant, descendant. Um, Basically, it makes anything louder. Anything becomes louder when they're right by those angles, especially by degree. Um, I do like the orb of 3 degrees, but when I think about outer planets and I think about Richard Tarnas having more like a 10-degree orb for outers, it's kind of what I'm rocking with usually. Yeah, and what I like too, so like Mars getting done with that Gemini party, right? And now hiding in a shell. I love that imagery. Um, there's going to be no shortage of shellfish metaphors in the next year, my friends. You just wait. You buckle up. Everyone's going to be so sick of it. um, but yeah, let's see. I guess the thing I like to think of, how do I say this? I'm thinking about the decans. So when we're going through Gemini and there's all of this just potential, all these potentialities, all these ideas and things pulling our attention, pulling our focus. Gemini, very air intellectual, but lots of moving parts and pieces, very busy. And Mars moving through there. What I was noticing was a lot of people having a hard time making decisions. And that is very classic Mars and Gemini. They are so, I mean, not to say they can't be incredibly decisive, but it's not before a lot of information, a lot of thinking, a lot of thoughts. We get the 8, 9, and 10 of swords. These are like the most thoughts you're going to be having. And then they make a decision, right? And then at the end of Gemini, Mars is making really hard decisions between things that they don't want to have to choose between sometimes. But then once Mars gets into Cancer, yeah, there's this slowing down, this quieting down, and we can start to focus. Okay, you chose those 2 or 3 things. Now Mars is doing the effort of tending to it cyclically, regularly, to do whatever they're doing with it. But yeah, it feels like the selection process that's happened or is maybe still in the works a bit. Now Mars in a water sign and one that is ruled by the moon, which is a body planet. It's like Mars decisions, getting into our body and like being able to make decisions from more of a heart place than a head place. We've been trying to make decisions from a head place the whole 6 weeks that Mars was in Gemini. Now it's much more like feeling into decisions, going on vibes, intuition, which is great. And sometimes that's exactly where we need to go. And sometimes it's like you need to do both of those processes. You need to do the intellectual thing and then fall into your body and make the final decision. So if that's been going on for people, congratulations. We're through like the thick of that kind of tangled web and trying to untangle, as Adam Summers says, heartstrings, untangling heartstrings. Like, oh man, yeah. Um, oh, we got someone doing major ancestral healing. Happy to hear it. For anyone who's interested, the fourth house and the IC is where you look in the chart for ancestry stuff and the rulers of those places. At least that's where I look. Thanks, everyone. Good anecdotes. Yeah. So Mars, I think Mars in Cancer can kind of be like, it's like almost like Scorpio. Because again, you're getting more protective. Um, if you are advocating for yourself, it's for your needs. It is not always comfortable. There's an incongruency here. It feels like a teenager who's, trying to state their needs loudly, but their like kid brother is sleeping on the side, and it's like, shh. So how do we have space for all of that? So yeah, be tender with each other. And this is going to be here. I mean, this is going to be here for a while. Let me till December at least. And this is something like if you have Mars in Cancer in your natal chart, you've been working with this energy your whole life. And so a lot of times I see Mars in Cancer people really exhibiting a lot of more of the constructive kind of manifestations. But yeah, we're going to be in this space till November 3rd. So, because usually they spend about 6 weeks in a place, but they're starting to slow down and get ready to retrograde at 6 degrees. So yeah, it'll be a little longer than 6 weeks. And then they'll spend a couple months in Leo, and then they'll be back in Cancer for a while. So we're just getting our feelers on for it. I do kind of wonder sometimes. I personally experience the ingresses to be a bit louder. So, now that Mars has made their entrance, we're getting to our little holding pattern and get used to the new kind of vibe out there, and everyone will be able to behave themselves better. Okay, behave themselves. So paternalistic, excuse me. So anywho's let me check my notes. I know I had some business. Um, Venus has been in Libra. I'm wearing earrings because I wanted to feel fancy for Venus and Libra. We had a Virgo new moon. I don't know. I thought it was fine. It really continues to be like just a few days every month, every time the moon is in Virgo. I mean, already like a Virgo moon tends to be, um, at least for me, pretty darn constructive. It's very practical. It's like what little steps need to be done today. And they can just do it. Like they can kind of get out of their emotions or whatever and just do what needs to be done in Virgo. And so I updated my books. Um, And yeah, just tending to the little details. And then what adds on to that is that we're also getting this very realistic, also very practical ray from Saturn every time the moon is in Virgo. And the sun has also, of course, been dealing with Saturn and their very realistic ray coming over. So I don't know. It's been pretty productive for me. Hopefully it has been for you as well. And this really starts to, I mean, we can see how kind of well operating Virgo and Libra are right now. So I guess, looking at wherever Virgo and Libra are in your birth chart, do those things right now. Like do Virgo things, Libra things. So if you're an Aquarius rising, that's your ninth house, your eighth house topics. If you are a Taurus rising, this is actually going to be your fifth and sixth house. So do those topics. That's where we squeeze the juice, I think, right now. Ever since Venus got into Libra, I've been listening to an incredible book, which actually I need to make a note to put it in my newsletter. I'm turning into Oprah's book club over here. Every time I read a book that's good, that's just what my newsletter turns into. Is like, but the book now is All About Love by Bell Hooks. Late to the party. I know other people, I'm sure it was like, you're just reading it now. I know. It's been out here for 25 years. But yeah, All About Love by Bell Hooks. They have a Libra stellium in their birth chart, and they're writing books about love. It's so good. It's just totally reshifted so many perceptions that I have in a really good way. So highly recommend that. And then that's what I have. Those are my reflection things. I guess wider kind of current business stuff. Mercury is pretty much losing their visibility. They're going to go underneath the beams again. And by the end of the month, they're going to be at the heart of the sun. So at this point, we've probably gotten some news that either we knew we were waiting for or surprise news. Anytime Mercury's visible, direct, usually we're getting information and details that are helpful on the path versus when Mercury is underneath the beams. Sometimes it's harder to get information or know things. So at this point, they are losing their visibility. And, I guess condition-wise, even symbolically, if things are hidden, they're still functioning really well. So Mercury's got their little umbrella. They're able to do whatever they need to do because they're in their own sign. We are going to be having some serious conversations, I think, over the next, I would say over the next 10 days. So kind of wider general thought for the next 2 weeks ahead is that we've got a lot of Pluto contacts, a lot of planets contacting with Pluto. We've got Mercury making this opposition with Saturn and then having their cazimi. And so it's, I would say pretty much now the 14th, the 15th through, well, no, let me actually scale back on that. Because it wraps up by about the 23rd, 26th. I would say, yeah, because the sun is going to start to trine Pluto by like the 16th. So let's just say like the 16th to the 26th. We're going to start to have the sun trine Pluto. Venus is going to square Pluto. And then Mercury is going to trine Pluto. So we're having these kind of square trine aspects with Pluto. When Venus is in her square with Pluto, they're in very good shape. And so it looks like a really constructive week or so with Pluto. It doesn't look like we are totally without resource in terms of the astrology. Like very capable Mercury, capable Sun, capable Venus, and having a trine relationship, that means that there's some kind of growth, opportunity, expansion quality to this, moving through things, having reconciliation, understanding, something of ease. If you're working with a Plutonian topic, I wish you all of the ease because those are hard topics. So it can be a good time to, maybe have some of these more complex conversations or serious conversations. And similarly, too, as Mercury opposes Saturn in the middle of September into the end of September, that's just another thing that says serious conversations or work the kind of problem solving, working through obstacles, fact finding, you know, yeah. And it just all looks potentially pretty constructive, honestly. But yeah, again, that's like September 16th. I know the eclipse is in there too, through the 26th. And then after that, people are done with Pluto, or the planets are done with Pluto. Uh, oh yeah, and Uranus. I'm leaving out Uranus. They've been part of this the whole time too, because anytime, in the case of the end of Virgo, that's a grand trine between two outers, one that is of transformation, the other that is of disruption, breakthrough, and all kind of being able to find some practical solutions or ways of wrapping things up in order to start the next type of iteration or wrapping things up in order to transition to the next thing. And I think that just as so many of these planets are at the end of their sign, they're at the end of their sign. So, okay. Yeah. The Uranus stuff. I forgot about that too. So 16th through the 26th. And then we're going to have the eclipse. We'll talk about that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that Venus and Mars are going to be working pretty well together with a water trine this month. So, but when Venus does get into Scorpio, and we'll talk about that dignity situation and all that stuff, but they'll be in a trine with Mars. And when Mars is in a trine with Venus, I mean, thing one is that Mars receives her. Mars sees Venus over in their home, says, "Hey, what's up?" They're also on the same sect, so they're on the same team, so they're friends. So Mars is like, "Hey, Venus, you're my friend. What's up? You're in my house." And they're in this really easeful relationship where they got each other on speed dial. Now, unfortunately, Mars is kind of unable to provide Venus with a ton of support. They're kind of able to finagle some things maybe, but Venus is in not the most resourced position, but she's also not completely alone. And there could be some really constructive things. And maybe I can bring in, okay, not comfortable, but really galvanizing. I've been using the word galvanizing because when Mars and Saturn are in nice aspects with stuff, it's like we're getting kind of when extreme forces lead to a strengthening of something. Um, Strengthening of, in this case, connections, strengthening of bonds, intensification of feelings, or intensification of sensory experiences, potentially, I guess. That's coming in a little bit. So take that for what you will. Be wary. So this is where I throw out my red flag. Anytime I hear myself, now I'm very explicitly talking about it. Anytime I hear myself, and I'm usually seeing if I'm hearing it out in the ether too, of like people telling you how you're going to feel during a transit. Okay, some transits are all watery, and some of them involve moon, and some of them involve other people. And to say that feelings won't be involved would just be silly, right? At the same time, just because it's raining doesn't, say it with me, everyone's sick of it. It doesn't mean you'll be sad. Just because it's raining doesn't mean you'll be sad. So that's why I like to use words like galvanizing. Maybe there's some discomfort of some kind, but maybe it's, not a bad thing, for instance. Um, at the same time, Mars in Cancer, it is pretty perceptive, and so is any planet in Scorpio, also very perceptive. So yeah, if I want to be real, if you're having intensification of feelings during any of these kind of uh, water heavy days, also not wild, but don't let astrologers tell you how you're going to feel because you might be just fine and you might notice it around you and it might be the other people. So, for instance, the last time we had the moon in Scorpio, Um, I felt fine, but all of my clients during the 2 days that Moon was coming into Scorpio, they were all coming in with complex problems or power dynamic problems or like scorpionic stuff. So I was fine, but the weather, it was coming out externally in people around me. And then I was having conversations about those topics, even though I wasn't being directly affected. So that's how we can think about that as well. Anyway, I digress. Last general note. So again, just to review general thoughts for the month ahead, Pluto Uranus action across all the Earth stuff. The 16th through the 23rd, 26th has a lot of Pluto-y Uranus stuff. Breakthroughs, big changes, big shifts. We're having an eclipse. We got Mars and Venus working together in water pretty well. Um, and then, for better or for worse, but I think it could be like really cool. And the Mercury cazimi at the end of the month. So some clarity around Mercury stuff. And with that, I'm going to get into the details a whopping 38 minutes in. I think this is a record for my slowest start. Let me check on the chat. See what's up. Yeah, some of us like the rain. I just recently heard the fancy word for that, and I don't remember when it was. Let's get into the details. So right now, I mean, I mentioned some stuff about Mercury. They're losing their visibility, but they're doing great. Venus, doing great. And we're in this trine between our two benefics. So the feel-good planets, the planets that are in charge of joy, pleasure, connection, understanding, goodwill, learning, expansion, bunch of nice themes there. They're all interacting really well. So sharing stuff with people, great weather for pollination. And today and tomorrow, the moon is really plugging into all of that. So um, today, tomorrow, the 14th, the 15th, nice days to chill. Thankfully, that's partially on a weekend if you're off. Uh, it's the good time to do stuff. This is one kind of last nice little pocket before the next the next week or so. A little lighter, a little airy. Venus is going to be applying to, of course, we can't forget Chiron. And so this just looks like a great opportunity to have, I mean, if there are any serious conversations to have, this is actually pretty good weather for it today and tomorrow. When I'm seeing all these harmonious aspects with Chiron between like the moon and Jupiter, that's really supportive. Feelings and understanding, they're playing along really well. And then we've got very diplomatic, relationally intelligent, relationally aware Venus in Libra that I know they're in an opposition, but we can think of it as working complementary, maybe healing wounds of expression by having supportive people around you. Healing wounds around, I think about Aries as just raw action, raw expression of self, um, whatever that means. And yeah, if there's any issues around that in identity or individuation or agency, healing wounds around the loss of any of those things, difficult initiations. This can actually be maybe a respite or a lull or a rest point if you currently are going through any kind of difficult initiations in your Aries part of your chart. Yeah, it just seems like a nice couple days. And even if you're dealing with more difficult topics, I hope it's a easier day than recently in getting through them. Let's see. Yeah, I said pretty healy-ish. Kind of healing. Uh, yeah, air moons have been nice lately. Also, general note, Leo moons. Leo moons are pretty nice all the whole time that Mars is in Cancer, because the whole time Mars is in Cancer and Saturn is in Pisces, every time the moon is in Leo, it's going to be an aversion to both of the malefics. So Mars can't see the moon, Saturn can't see the moon. I dig it. And then pretty soon, when the sun gets into Libra on the 22nd, then any moon activity will also be more supported. So yeah, Leo moons also kind of nice, put on your map. Uh Mercury on the 15th still applying to Saturn. And then on the 16th, I guess we can move on to the 16th. Yeah, then we're kind of in eclipse territory because moon enters into Pisces, into the sign in which it will become eclipsed. And we're going to start to get into that framing. I do want to stop for my meditation time, actually, which I forgot to do that. I rushed right past it. I'm still getting into a habit of, I want to start putting more mindfulness type of very mindful, very demure. It came out at such good time, that meme. We're going to be very mindful and very demure as we start these things because it's like, this is so in our head. It's so brainy and it's so out, like literally we're talking about the sky, which is up there, away from Earth. And that can get, depending on what your own internal window of tolerance is, essentially for activation, like whatever activates you and gets you like a little too jazzed up. Um, Getting up into this mental space, I feel like it can get like, and I've noticed, I mean, I'm doing this because I'm like this, like I can get jazzed up. So grounding, touching grass. I actually just went for a bike ride before this. I went around the block a couple times. I have like this bike I found at a garage sale, and it's got a bell that's a hamburger. So I got my little hamburger bell. Ding ding. So yeah, I'm learning. I'm trying to remember the bike signals like a dork. I was like, no one driving in my area. So it's just me out there alone, just like doing the signals. Um, anyway, touching grass. It really does matter. But another way to do that is to pause, slow down, do a little meditation thingy, and then we can burst off into the stratosphere. Ah, so yeah, let me actually do that. And it ties into the Pisces moon, Saturn, Neptune nature of this eclipse. So it feels relevant. And I'm going to say it now, and I'm probably going to bring it back next in 2 weeks too. But I have linked this below. So scroll down into the extra information, and I included what is basically a method for emotional processing from Tara Brach. So if this is something where like going inside and going into your internal landscape is not like an easeful, safe space for you, if that's something that you really like to do only with a trusted friend or adult or therapist, then this is not the space for you to do that. You are welcome to go get a snack or do something else for a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And I wanted to walk through this method for being with the body, being with what's going on in it, because it's, this will just be a tool or a resource for us over the next, 16th, 17th, 18th. So actually let me pull it up. And I'm going to give an example too, because I actually just went through this personally. Um, oh shoot, one of the links didn't work. Let me see if I can find my PDF. It's that important. I'll put it in the chat. There's a little PDF that's it's like a little written primer. It's like a less than 5 minute read on average. If you're me, it's a little more than 5 minutes. And then there's also a video of her talking about, it's a podcast episode or something, of her really going through it and giving examples of it. And it's like a 40, 50 minute listen. But yeah, essentially, and I'm looking at the PDF, but it's called RAIN. It's RAIN. And RAIN stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So it's this 4-step process for being with any kind of emotion that comes up, anything that comes up, even a thought, whatever it is that's going on. And it's this idea of radically accepting what's going on and then providing yourself with compassion for whatever's going on. It was originally developed by McDonald. Uh, Tara Brach came in and tweaked it a bit, but essentially what these are, if I break them down even more, so recognize what is going on, allow the experience to be there just as it is, investigate with interest and care, and then nurture with self-compassion. So this process, sometimes it takes me 30 seconds, sometimes it's a whole thing that takes me a long time, like an hour. Uh, if I'm in a situation where I can't do the last part, like I've gone through like being with myself and thinking about things and blah blah blah, and I can't like do the things that I actually need to do to take care of myself, I will schedule them for later that day. So that's what I used to do when I was in pharmacy and I was trying to do this is, like the thing that I needed was actually to like get a hug or talk to someone, etc. I couldn't do that because I was at work. So I did it at that night. I didn't put it off because then what happens is you're really just spiritual bypassing, cramming stuff in, right? Now, of course, there's all kinds of trauma responses that make doing this process alone for the first time, again, might not be for you depending on what your background is. But if you do feel like this is something that's safe for you, I highly recommend taking it for a test spin during this eclipse. Um, Anytime there's any thoughts, feelings, behaviors that are coming in that you're recognizing. And what I find is that sometimes in that first step, like, so I'm going to give the example of fear, especially like fear of uncertainty, which I think, so much. Oh my goodness. Neptune. Neptune, Neptune. They are the Lord of uncertainty. And this eclipse is happening right next to it. This eclipse is also happening next to Saturn, the Lord of certainty. Whoa. Certainty, uncertainty sandwich. So I have a feeling we're going to be trying to make sense and see what is real amidst some level of uncertainty. And the brain does not like uncertainty. We do everything that we can, including devise entire methods like astrology to escape the discomfort of uncertainty. That's why we have astrology. People wanted certainty. They wanted to know what was going to happen. Um, so fear. And then how do we recognize it when it's happening and then get into this process? So, I mean, like the pre-thing to this other thing is even just the practice of noticing and recognizing things as they're happening. There's two types of time in astrology. There's in Western kind of Greek, whatever, Chronos time and Kairos time. Chronos time, like kind of that linear, we're measuring it, we're making transits about it and cycles that stop and end at a certain time. And then there's Kairos, the more like qualitative, subjective experience of time. And part of that is noticing it and not just like running through our lives or whatever. So sometimes it's really hard to even do. I should have had this up. It's even hard to do this whole rain thing if we are just running around so much that we don't even have the ability to notice like the Kairos type of time to even do the recognized part. So if that's where you are, which that is some relatable content, I still practice very much with just trying to recognize. So earlier today I had some fear. So I'm going to use myself and do a vulnerability, a share. So maybe I'll have a vulnerability hangover later. That's okay. But I was having a lot of fear before presenting for a thing and facilitating a group. And what I realized, so I recognized my anxiety. That's what I recognized was anxiety. And, my rapid heart rate and all of these physical signs that happen to me when I get anxiety. And I recognized it. There is anxiety here. Allowing. So I was like, okay, there's anxiety. But it was really hard for me to even get into the A if I didn't say it out loud. I had to actually whisper it out loud. Ah, there's anxiety. And then once I did that, I was able to like move to the next step. So if you're having a hard time mentally doing it, try saying it or writing it, doing something physical. And then really like naming. And I was investigating it then. So kind of my A and my I were like happening kind of in tandem together. So it was like I was allowing my anxiety, I was recognizing it, allowing it to be, okay, I'm with my anxiety. I'm not trying to push it away. I'm not trying to deny it that it's there. I'm not trying to just say, oh, take some deep breaths, you'll be fine. Um, I'm being like, okay, there's anxiety. There's fear. What am I anxious about? I'm scared. What am I scared of? X, Y, Z, personal things that in probably conditioned from all sorts of childhood stuff about why I'm fearful. Um, and then saying fear out loud then allowed me to cry a bunch. And then I cried a bunch. And I was really crying because I was just letting myself be fearful. I was just totally letting myself be scared. And I was in that kind of at the same time, like investigating, understanding the why and the how and the root cause of it. And then what comes after, and well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Even with this investigate, it's so important with interest and care. So sometimes there's this big yearning and desire to like, if there's uncertainty and I want to get to the bottom of like why I'm even scared of uncertainty, we can just start to get into some weird like thinking loop in this investigate process, or we can be pushing ourselves so much to get an answer in order to feel better, like an intellectual answer to feel better. And that's all fair and good, but make sure there's also like interest and care. And this is where we can take Thich Nhat Hanh's kind of stuff and hold the feeling like a baby, or treat that part of yourself that you are investigating as like a child or a baby. Like, how would you tend to them if they were scared in this situation, if they were fearful? And, maybe that feels silly for you, but the first several times I did it, it felt very silly for me. So you just gotta fake it till you make it. And then the final part of this, which is my favorite part, which is the part that a lot of us skip, is the nurturing and self-compassion. Okay, here's these feelings, and this is why, and I've allowed myself to feel them and move through them, at least partially, maybe not completely, it depends. Then what do you need? What do you need? Just ask yourself what you need, and then let yourself have that. And that can be so many things. It can be like affirmations to yourself. It could be, again, like finding someone to talk to or hug if you need a hug, getting a snack, making sure you're fed and watered, taking a nap, um, maybe canceling plans, whatever it is that you need, playing a video game, maybe numbing out. Okay, you've done your part. You've processed your things. Do you want to rest? Maybe you just need to rest and not think about things for a minute. So, you know, I don't want to be an astrologer that tells people how they're going to feel. I would much rather say if there are feelings, as they happen sometimes when you have a body, and if there are water signs being activated, and the moon is being activated and it's by the North Node, which from personal experience, it is a thing to deal with. Yeah, here's a resource. So hopefully that helps. Not much of a meditation today, as much of more of a introduction to a helpful thing. Um, but yeah, I think just understanding, like one thing I wanted to, I guess, share in terms of just the practice of astrology is I've been thinking about it a lot, of how much this is just an exercise of trying to quell uncertainty so much of the time. Sometimes it's for planning. It's more like achievement oriented or optimization oriented. Like I want to pick the best time to do something, or, I want the wind at my back. But sometimes, and I think again, a lot of the time, it can be much more about like uncertainty. So then, I mean, I think we could even do a precept. And now this is where I'm putting myself out of business and I'm being a horrible business person. But before we even open astrology, before we even open the chart, if we are opening the chart to in a state of concern or anxiousness about whatever is going on, maybe we can first just ask ourselves like, okay, is there uncertainty, discomfort with that uncertainty? And then maybe there's other things that can be done to work with that that might even be a better tool. But then if you determine that no, that's not the case, I need the sky. Then yeah, open up that chart. This is like where I was looking for something the other day and I couldn't find it and I was looking everywhere. And then I finally broke down and used horary astrology. Now, I don't think it has to be like that, but there is something like, I guess, in a divination sense that happens extra special or extra clear, extra good in the divination when you have done everything in your earthly will to do what you can do. Not to say you can't rely on spirit and your team and your guides and all that all the time, but not to like use these techniques as like a coping thing that where we're wasting energy or yeah, just a coping thing where we're wasting energy. I hope that makes sense. Because at the same time, I'm like, this is such a great tool. Let's use it for finding all of the things right away. And, let's have reckless abandon with it. But I don't know, it's somewhere in the middle. Anyway, philosophical corner over. But I think that was a good thing to share for this Pisces lunation that's coming up. So let's look at it. And it's on the 17th. It is at 25 degrees. So especially if you've got things in Pisces, Sag, Virgo, Gemini, you might be feeling this a little bit more on the louder side. If you are in a year where like by annual profections, Cancer, Leo, Moon, Sun are activated, especially like the Moon, Cancer, this might be a louder lunation for you. If you are in a Pisces activated profection year, this might be a little louder for you. Hell, let's just throw it into if you're in a Saturn activation of any kind. Sure, maybe it'll be louder too, because Saturn is right there. So as the moon is kind of flirting with trying to see what's real, trying to accept what's really there, we can also, with Neptune here, have that radical compassion, that radical nurturing care for the self amidst potential challenge. Um, let's see. I'm sure I have a bunch more notes on it. Uh, oh yeah, I had a picture too. Okay, visibility wise, this is what we're dealing with. So this is, I hope you can see that. How do I use my computer? Yeah, here's the globe. And so if you were in South America, it looks like you're going to be able to see this eclipse pretty well if you are in the western half of Africa, if you're in the western half of Europe, the eastern half of North America, you can see the eclipse. If you are in the Midwest, well, a little bit more west. The more west you go globally in the Western time zones, and then also like Middle East, and then more globally east, then you start to not be able to see the eclipse more and more and more. So there's definitely quite a few of us who are going to be able to see this thing. Like even if we go back to the circle chart and just look at like the exact point of it where I am in Wisconsin here. So we can always set up our ascendant, descendant axes, which is our horizon. And we can assume, I guess, all right, the sun will have set for me, and I should be able to see this in my sky. It's not going to be it's not going to be a total lunar eclipse because the moon is not right on the node. They're a little bit away from that exact crossing point. So just a partial eclipse. I guess maybe we can say that then we can dial down their strength. I don't know if that works. Maybe I just made that up. If anyone else has heard that, yeah, I want to assume the more total the eclipse, the more powerful it is, I feel like that's intuitive. Um, Jupiter can see it. Jupiter can see it. It is in the Mars Decan. Oh my gosh, is it in the Mars bounds too? It is in the Mars bound. What a Martial moon. Um, Mars can see. I mean, in general, full moons are already busy and active. The light of the moon is full. There is going to be, so it looks like a very like potent, just full moon, but then it's going to be interrupted, right? There's going to be an eclipse of it. So I don't really know what to make of that, to be honest. It just feels like, what is it when something really energetic gets interrupted versus something kind of energetic gets interrupted? I can't think of any good metaphors right now. I do like, and this is what I've been telling most of my clients, is that the rest of the sky is pretty supportive. So if there's any kind of funkiness, shenanigans, difficulties with this one on the 17th, on Tuesday, the rest of the sky has the ability to at least work with it, manage it, and then 2 to 3 out of our 7 planets are in really great shape to be able to navigate things. So on like the Richter scale of eclipses, this is not my highest, my highest. Yeah, I mean, again, and this is something I mentioned before. Look at long-standing challenges, especially in the Pisces area of your chart, and see the stepwise approach towards solutions. Try to see the stepwise approach. Uh, this is kind of coming on the heel, or this is coming at the beginning of what is about to be a pretty transformative week, again, between like the 16th and the 26th. So the eclipse kicking this off, it feels like, you know, a bigger, longer picture or problem that it might not be like a new thing. I imagine it's something we've all been dealing with already. And yeah, again, great for serious talks, communication. Just know that, like, when it comes to eclipses, I personally don't think they're the most stable. It's the life-giving, supportive energy of the sun and the moon that's being interrupted. And so that being interrupted makes me feel like it's just not super stable to plant seeds of new things into. That being said, sometimes it just happens like that. And then in that case, it's not that that seed won't grow. It can absolutely grow. Um, but it's now probably on a clock that is every 6 months, there's an eclipse. And like I've seen at least one example of a married couple where it's like on that 6 months clock, that's when things are happening in their relationship or around them, or like their dishwasher needs to be replaced, or like that's when the things are happening. So look around, see what things are beginning, coming to change or transformation, kind of anytime between September 17th and October 2nd. And if it is a new thing, if something is being seeded, then you know it's on that clock. Doesn't have to be a bad thing. If I can choose, I wouldn't necessarily choose this particular clock. Not the end of the world. So again, there's just so much discourse on the internet that's like, don't do this, definitely do that. And like, I am just increasingly allergic to that stuff. And I'm almost like contrarily being ambiguous just to be contrarian to whatever the F that sensationalist stuff is. Um, I personally have started, and I mean, I need to actually restart this whole year-long chanting practice in earnest anyway. But just as kind of like when you're spot cleaning the floor, I started doing my Dakshinamurti chanting practice again. Dakshinamurti was, I guess, I don't know if they're a deity proper or a god or what exactly their title is, but they were someone who could essentially tame and wrangle the North Node, Rahu, the head of the dragon. They were able to like keep a lid on them, basically. So like, you know, knowledge, suppressing ignorance, but not completely getting rid of ignorance, because then we would never have learning and knowledge. Uh, but anyway, Dakshinamurti. So I've started chanting to that again, to them again, and doing that chant. And, you know, I'll probably put some black salt on my altar or something. But if you are part of the Sphere and Sundry universe out there, I know Caitlin Kopic has some really great instructions on how to kind of maybe more in a Jyotish Vedic sense, but work through some of these eclipse energies. So that's another little breadcrumb of a resource if you're looking for ways to get through the eclipse. Is there anything else I need to say about the eclipse? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess of all things, I guess I'm just happy to see that, Mars is in a happy set of aspects with the eclipse where, they're not going to be able to throw in too many wrenches, I don't think. And they might even be more of a constructive type of element to it somehow. I guess we'll see. And if I'm too soft on it, I guess we'll find out. And then I'll correct myself next time. And then right after this, Mercury opposes Saturn. Now, right after Mercury opposes Saturn, they are going to square Jupiter. So, from Mercury's point of view, it's like more of a slowdown, delay, or serious conversations or making certain commitments, maybe committing to longer term plans or whatever the kind of longer term effort is. And if there is like a rejection, some kind of no, some kind of limitation or barrier that happens around the 18th, I kind of wonder right afterwards if Mercury is not going to run into some modest help, a modest yes, a modest, okay, no here, but yes here. Um, so it's not totally all gnarly on the 18th with that opposition. And then on the 19th, 20th, that's more when Mercury is going to start to experience, okay, Jupiter. Okay, but here's this, even if it's a little bit of a consolation prize. Yeah, so whatever is challenging this month, Jupiter can see at least until the 22nd. Venus is in really good shape. So there's plenty of help in the sky. And on the 18th too, 17th and 18th might be mind your own business days. Honestly, the 16th, 17th, 18th. Uh, the moon is also going to be with Rahu and in Aries on the 18th. So even though the eclipse is over and it's moved on to the next sign, it's still with the node. And so I actually would like to wait until the moon gets into Taurus to really have an expectation that the astrology weather will start to feel a little bit better. Um, so it might be more of a respite come like the 20th, September 20th. Yeah, moon is with Chiron on the 18th and the 19th too, because they're also in Aries. There is a little benefic enclosure, it looks like, on the 19th. So I guess let me backtrack and like dial down what I just said a little bit. I guess like at least when the moon is from what is that? 20 Aries to 26 Aries. That looks like a nice little window. Yeah, so Central Time, that's about noon to 9 p.m. If you are in Europe, you're gonna sleep through, or that'll be more your like evening. If you're in Europe and Africa, that'll be the benefic enclosure, the nice little window on the 19th will be in your evening. The more global east you get, you're gonna be like you'll be sleeping through it unless you work third shift. You might have a nice third shift. The further globally east you go, whatever the moon is between 20 and 26 degrees, that's when they're going to have a nice little benefic enclosure between the rays of Jupiter and Venus. So a little window, little pocket there, which is nice. But yeah, I think when the moon gets into Taurus, then we're going to be out of some of that direct like eclipsiness. And that's again more on the 20th. Mercury Jupiter square on the 20th. Given that Mercury can receive Jupiter, looks pretty cool to me. So when it comes to like organizing information, fact finding, trying to put together plans, If there's like any kind of buying or selling you're doing and you need to make like adjustments or work on that issue, it's a good day to work on it on the 20th, 21st. And yeah, it's like we just have Jupiter being very well disposited by Mercury. And so the ability to put order to maybe some Gemini house topics, some Virgo house topics in your chart might be a good time for that on the 20th, 21st, or dealing with communication, buying, selling, planning, being a brainy brain. And now we're gonna really get into this Pluto stuff. So by the 21st, we've got Sun trining Pluto. So some transformation happening across the topics related to the Virgo part of our charts and the Capricorn part of our chart. So for instance, in this Virgo rising example, a lot of this transformation is going to be happening in your Earth triangle. So between first, fifth, and ninth house topics, maybe of self, health, fun, rest, play, belief, travel, any way we can kind of put together these areas in a way that has to do with making really positive changes, changing habit patterns for the better, trying new things in that regard, having breakthroughs, maybe having solutions that are really disruptive, or maybe transformations that are very good and healthy, but also disruptive in some kind of way. A lot of my healthiest transformation thingies have been very disruptive, if you would ask my mother. So, depends on who you ask, but I don't know, the trine quality of it makes me feel pretty good about all of this. And then we are going to have Venus square Pluto. So this is one note that I'm not as big of a fan of, just because like every time I notice this, it's like higher pressure meetings, important meeting, things you care about, like relationally, and feeling pressure or tension around those things that you really care about, or those relationships or people. Um, Powerful experiences having to do with like our values or any relationship. But there's some level of potential discomfort, pressure, or tension, I think. And every time I see this, what I notice in my own life is I am meeting somebody important, or I am having some interaction with someone where I'm going to have to do that rain thing before I have that meeting. So sometimes that's so natural. Like one of them was literally me meeting my boyfriend's mom. And I wanted it to go well, and I felt very pressurized. uh, so yeah, it doesn't have to be bad, but the 21st, if you've got important things going on, it's the weekend, but like let's say you're working on a project or something and you're doing the last finishing touches on it, that can be kind of stressful. But Venus is in really good shape to whatever she's doing, she's going to do a good job, and she's going to be able to relate all that. Now, a more negative delineation for this on like the 21st is, I mean, potentially self-censorship, potentially like power dynamics, any kind of distortions with relating due to complexity or funkiness or something like that. So, if you notice yourself falling into more of those like strong, Venus too tight at the wheel, trying to control the outcome relationally or control the outcome in any sense, that might be strong on the 20th and 21st as well. Or we might notice that in people around us, or it might just be the theme of whatever is on the movie that we're watching that night. I've been watching a lot of cult documentaries, and Pluto has been like right on my ascendant. And I'm like, this is why. I also finally started watching X-Files. Pluto's on my ascendant. They're getting dang close. I've never been able to watch the X-Files. I have always been way too scared. Like something's changed. I guess I'm like a bad bee now. Um, but yeah, then we're gonna have Mercury have the same conversation that the sun just had, but now with more like logic, rationale, details. this could be, oh gosh, I mean, okay, this could be having a hard time setting down a project. If you're working on something, if you are, I don't know, doing anything in the material world, whether that's for recreation, whatever it is, it's like this is that part of Virgo, and it's also kind of that part of Capricorn where it's like the painter who can't step away from the painting, or the perfectionist who's perfecting way too hard, or something like that, where they're just way too tight of a grip on the steering wheel. So, um, in some regards, that's going to be really helpful. Maybe this is some hyper focusing, some plowing through a bunch of cognitive work or practical cognitive labor kind of stuff. Um, God, I can imagine like if I was at home, I would probably be like shucking corn, just ear after ear after ear. Like it's not a winnower. We're not separating wheats and shafts, but I am separating corn cobs from the leaves. So any kind of like process where you need to like get in there and just get stuck in there, I mean, it could be really helpful for that. But if you're finding like that's not the move at that time, on the 23rd, 24th, oh heck, let's just say till the 26th. Let's just extend that. So like 24th through 26th, really great for hammering through some practical real world things. If you're not stepping away from the painting, talk to a friend so you can step away from it. Um, it's the what is that? The 10 of Pentacles and the 4 of Pentacles. Well, the Pamela Coleman Smith art, which I don't fully subscribe to the Pamela Coleman Smith art of the tarot deck, but I've been using it, so it's in my brain. And this last decan of Capricorn, where Pluto is, it is that king-looking person that's like holding on to their pentacles, and they've got like one here, and they've got like two under their feet. They're like trying to hold on to what they've gained and what they've created, and they want it to stand the test of time. And they're kind of playing it safe uh, in some ways. And at the end of Virgo, I mean, God, I think of Austin Coppock talking about all of the sarcophaguses and the kind of death that is around this place, and it just seems like the I don't know, like the end of something. It feels like the very, very end of some physical thing, whether it's I grew this wheat, made it into flour, made it into bread. Eventually you have to eat that bread. You can't just put it on the table and look at it and how pretty it is. You should eat it, enjoy it. Um, Maybe that's what we do more in Libra. We break bread with our friends. But yeah, some intensity here, but it could be constructive. So that really brings us to pretty much the end of the month, in a lot of ways. I need to talk about Libra, and I need to talk about that cazimi. Yeah, let's just go to a little backward here, but let's go to the 22nd, because this is when we do have some ingresses. We've got Libra Sun and we've got Scorpio Venus. So as soon as the Sun gets into Libra, they are going to be in a trine, more of like a square by degree-ish, but square trine-ish with Jupiter. That's very nice. This is a condition of bonification. However, they are getting an overcoming square from Mars. And Mars is in a cardinal sign. Mars in a cardinal sign. They can get stuff done. So if there's a sense of urgency around like the 22nd, 23rd, maybe stuff is just happening and you're having to go at the flow. Do your best. But yeah, if there's like quickness, speed, urgency, especially at the end of September, like the last 10 days of September, wouldn't be super surprised. I think this whole time the sun is going to be applying to the square with Mars, like the pace is going to pick up, and yeah, the pace is just going to pick up. And it's pretty much the whole time sun is in Libra. So yeah, that vibe of speed picking up and maybe a sense of urgency, whether or not it's warranted, that's going to continue into October. Uh, what else? The sun, I mean, Libra's not its favorite place. It's technically in fall here because one of the reasons stated gosh, it's coming in handy because I just had to read this. I think it was Ptolemy was one of the authors that had these really naturalistic points of view around the signs and a lot of stuff. He liked more of those natural philosophy types of reasons or explanations. But Libra in the northern hemisphere, that is the tropical sign where we're going to start losing light. Once the sun gets in here, we're going to start losing light. At Aries and Libra, when the sun is here, we have equal day and equal night. But there's a difference. In Aries, we're about to gain a bunch of light. In Libra, we're about to lose a bunch of light. So this is partly given as a reason as why Sun exalts in Aries and why Sun is in fall in Libra and why Saturn exalts in Libra. Saturn likes when it's about to get dark. It's about to be Saturn season in a few more months. So Saturn's like, yeah, get rid of that light. They love being in Libra. There's plenty of other ways that Libra and Saturn jive that I won't get into. And Saturn is not super happy in Aries. So definitely different natures, kind of conflicting natures involved. And we can also just think of the sun more psychologically as being the self, the soul of the self, very will oriented, very me oriented, because I am the sun. I'm the center organizing principle. And in Libra, there's 2 points. So what do you do when it's like, I'm supposed to be the single point? Now you're telling me I gotta like be a binary star system or something? And so that's a little, that it's just a difference, incongruence in their qualities. And so the sun struggles to be the sun as much as like the sun in the Leo would be the sun. They're just not going to be doing that classical solar thing when they're in Libra. And this is where you get a lot of people who are really good at especially helping other people shine, um, really shining themselves in relationship or in partnership or in groups. Um, Kind of putting their own will aside sometimes for ethical reasons or something like that. In any event, there's a bit of a shift here. There's also a social awareness, away from material only kind of focus with Earth. And now there's more of a relational focus and intellectual focus. It's less practical and logical, which is what we have had with Sun and Virgo. And now I mean, not that, Libra's plenty rational and logical, but there's more complexity with adding a relational element or an ethical element. So don't get to thinking too hard after September 22nd. But if you find yourself overanalyzing at the end of September into October, classic powerhouse of an analytical mind that is Libra planets, especially Libra Sun, Libra Mercury, Libra Moon. They can be so analytical. They don't get credit for it because people just assume, oh, you're good at art and that's it. Or you have a lot of boyfriends. It's definitely more than that. Like there's a mental, intellectual kind of cognitive capacity, for better or for worse, of being aware of so many variables. They can just clock all these variables. So that's Sun. They're with the South Node for the first 10 days. Take it easy between, like physically, take it easy between September 22nd and like into October. I want the sun to get away from the South Node, which will be, yeah, pretty much October. And the sun is our vitality. When it's with the South Node, we can have our vitality drained a little bit. If we're feeling a little extra tired or even just spiritually tired, but yeah, lack of motivation potentially while the sun is there. Now, if you have a spiritual practice, you might just be going really diligently at your spiritual practice between like September 22nd and October 1st. I know I will be because of the eclipse and stuff, but I just say that because the South Node can be more of an immaterial spiritual point. And sometimes when planets are around there, it's just like we're putting our like those outlets into more of a spiritual, immaterial kind of realm. But if you're out like doing a bunch of chores, being really physically active, if you're feeling a little out of sorts physically, like you need extra rest, need extra breaks, between September 22nd and October 1st. Take extra breaks. Be careful. I would say, if it were winter, I'd say if you were shoveling, take extra breaks. If your heart is beating very quickly. And then Venus is going to be in Scorpio, and so we're going to have quite the shift in dignities in the sky by this point. Um, Planets that are not in their home. I think I always do this. I'm realizing I'm doing this more where I'll have two transit things up, and it's because I'm so used to seeing a client circle in the middle, and I'm just used to watching the transits around the outside. I don't have to do that here. I don't have a client in the middle. So thank you. I'm sure people have been wondering for months why I keep doing that. I finally realized it the other day. I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice I had two circles up because I just constantly have two circles up. When a planet is not in their home, so like say Venus, who rules Taurus, when they're in Scorpio, they are really far away from where they have dignity, where they have control and agency over how they run their affairs. When Venus is in Libra, when Venus is in Taurus, they have more ability to self-govern and to decide, I want to be Venus and I'm going to Venus as hard as I want. And that's totally cool. When Venus is in Scorpio, they're not supported to be themselves. They are not supported to um, really Venus in the way that they want to here. And it doesn't mean that there's an inability or a lack of ability to connect, but externally you may notice that there is not the easeful support of say connection or beauty or art as we would expect it. Uh, we can see Venus's stuff just going into the house topics of whatever Scorpio is for you. So for me, this is my 10th house of career. I don't know, maybe you'll see me wearing earrings next month too. Because I'll be like, I'm gonna be cute at work when I'm in public. Um, but Venus, when they're in like their preferences, right? And when they're in a different sign than they're really accustomed to being in, then our preferences can start to look different too. And then you can start to see a lot of counterculture, um, not mainstream type of behavior out of Venus, which is not good or bad or right or wrong, but it's probably not mainstream. It's probably a little different than whatever the relative peer type of thing is around that person who's living that out. Um, I think Venus and Scorpio can have a lot of cool things. Venus likes to be in water. They like to be in an evening nocturnal type of sign. If I get my complicated wheel up, actually, we can see eventually she's going to get into her own bound. She won't be there right away. And eventually she's going to have her own decan. So, there are these spaces, even within Scorpio, where Venus can have some extra functionality or help more than we would expect. So, um, that's more in October. We're also, I kind of am curious. So it looks like, yeah, we don't really have any planets in their bounds. And it's fun. So more and more and more over the last year, I've gotten into the bounds myself and just kind of layering that in with my interpretations a bit more than I used to. And if anyone is familiar with Kyra Ryberg, Kyra Ryberg, Ryberg. They were just talking on social media. They're about to come out with a bounds guide of some kind, and their stuff is always good. I'm always like buying their stuff, so I'm excited for that. I guess I wanted to share that too. So Kyra Redberg, go check out their bounds guide that they're going to be coming out with soon. Um, it makes a difference. I do think it helps. Well, what else do I have to say about Venus? I think I'll wait till next time to riff more on her, but um, let yourself, when Venus is in Scorpio, let yourself love whatever you want to love, even if other people don't get it. Let yourself connect deeply if it's safe. Explore intimacy, vulnerability, explore deep connection or new ways of connecting with people you already know. Um, Especially I'm thinking too more when oh, that's at like 7 degrees. So it's like September 28th ish. Looks like when Venus gets into their own bound, and they're going to be in there for a few days. So for what it's worth. Um, might be some very cool experiences of deep connection or bonds forming with people that are really special, strengthening of bonds, galvanizing of bonds, really passionate energy with Venus and Mars being in a trine, which just continues to heat up as September turns into October. So, as we're coming into spooky season for many of us, this is a really great outlet for like your art and any kind of like watery, emotional, kind of moody, emo self-expression that you might want to do. Make a Halloween costume about it. If you're an artist, this is very great artist fuel. Um, if you're a poet, if you're a writer, all of that. If you are like an athlete, Mars and water like this, kind of wonder if our discipline, our stamina, at least once sun gets away from the south node. But these other things, it feels very like endurance, stamina, like being able to go to the gym and like actually work pretty hard for what it's worth. And then, maybe last little fun thing, any kind of effort that requires a lot of care, a lot of intention, maybe because it's like if you're up to something like a hobby that's really intense, like rock climbing or anything that needs like sustained focus and attention. I kind of wonder if we're going to be having a good ability to do that end of September into October. So for instance, like a fun Scorpio thing to do, anything that requires sustained intention and attention. So, me and my mom just went kayaking, and it's like a whole thing. I've gone kayaking with a few different friends and everything over the last couple years, and it's like there's a lot of hobbies that are like this, where it's like you got to plan that. You have to like get the stuff all ready. You got to like get your gear ready, and then you got to like go to the place and then get all the stuff into the water, and then you got to get in the water, and then you actually get to have fun and do all the stuff. And then you have to undo it all. And it's just like I see so many examples of like Venus in Scorpio or Scorpio in the fifth, or like, some conflation of like recreation, fun, rest, joy, and Scorpio. And it's like honestly just these things that take like a sustained amount of effort. And so like, yeah, we're getting into that rabbit hole. But just like, yeah, really, and then the word almost becomes satisfying. It's like, was it like fun the whole time? No. Did I hurt myself? A little bit. Was it deeply satisfying? Yes. Would I do it a billion times over? Absolutely. So, if there's something more martial in some of the stuff that you're up to, I mean, there's some martial things in the sky. So that is a little bit of riffing on Venus and Scorpio. I'm gonna do more of that next month. I'm gonna get rid of this complicated wheel because it hurts my eyes. And then, all right, we're gonna have Libra season. Venus is gonna get over that square with Pluto on the 22nd. So on the 22nd, Venus squaring Pluto at, I have the exact time of when it gets over. It perfects at 4:15 p.m. Central Time. That's the middle of the night in more of the universal time zone. And that's going to be in the morning in the Eastern time zones. So the 22nd is a Sunday. So if you have anything kind of like intense on like Monday morning, if you're more in the global East, that would fit for this. If you're like on Monday morning, it was more like, yeah, high intensity types of relational things or high impact or high pressure things happening. Yeah, at the end of the 22nd into the 23rd, depending on time zone. If you have like that kind of stuff already set, there you go. There's your reflection. Hopefully you can, be stoic about it or whatever. Um, if you have the choice to not do a meeting like the morning of the 23rd, if you're in the global East, or the last part of the day, if you're for whatever reason working on a Sunday, uh, yeah, avoid it. I don't love high pressure for meetings. Sometimes they'll just happen and that's the nature of what's happening and that is what it is. But sometimes I can avoid these times for things. Oh yeah, and here's the funny one for me. So the last time we had this Venus Pluto thing I had mentioned, I was meeting my boyfriend's mom. This time we're meeting my big brother. No, I don't want to do it. I love him. He'll never watch this ever, ever. If he is, it's only just to make sure I'm not entirely nuts. Um, I love him so much, but he is a science guy. So it's gonna be one of those, one of those dinners. And I am gonna just slather myself in whatever remains of my Ariel, goddess, sphere and sundry, Venus, whatever that stuff is, and just let Jesus take the wheel, I guess. Can't get out of it. It's already planned. It was already planned before I even realized that this was happening. So let me look at this chat because it's been a minute since I've done that. Thank you everyone so much for hanging in there if you're still here. We've got some familiar friends. Yeah, sometimes the answer is not always more astrology. Now, did I act like this in my own personal life like a week and a half ago? No. I caught myself. I was like 3 hours into looking at way too far into the future on too many levels. And I was like, hold up, wait a minute. I'm doing that thing again. And then I stopped doing it and I just did something else. Uh, Yeah, Jupiter profection years for most intents and purposes, most cases it beats a Saturn year. Although I did have a Jupiter year, a very Jupiter profection year, and I was liberated from a situation that it was necessary. I needed to be liberated, but being liberated is a process, and it is not always a fun, comfortable one. So that was definitely a thing. Uh, I'm not done yet. I'm going to put the wheel back, but I want to take a break. Yeah, and then too, I mean, of course, if you've got secondary progressions you're looking at, that's yet another layer to consider. If you've got a bunch of activity in Pisces, then I guess the philosophical question would be, does a transit in Pisces is that more important if I've got a bunch of secondary progress planets in there? I mean, sure, why not? I think it would be. I guess you'll have a front row seat, so let us know. Yeah, Francesca, constructive intensity may describe your chart as a whole. Same. I'm a child of Saturn and Mars. I can't help it. So, all the children of Saturn and Mars. Hello. Uh, yeah, Lisa mentions Kyra Ryberg had that really great episode with Chris on the lots. Really great episode on the lots. Yeah, let's just let's fangirl Kyra Ryberg because they also have their lots guidebook, which I have and you have used, and I love it. Um, and you got a decking book. Yeah, so clearly like high quality reference tools. Reference tools are really important. Even in medicine, like it was really helpful. We used to have these like Wisconsin Pharmacy Society like laminated things that you'd like fold out and it'd be like this big, but it was like a whole primer on like, current treatment guidelines for all of the disease states. And, you just pull out one of these things like, and like looking at it. Um, Quick references are so important when you start to get these big conceptual frameworks that they're just like massive. So yeah, those are really great. Thanks everyone. Crowdsourcing resources. Dig it. Let's finish up this month. Uh, so on the 22nd, again, Libra season, Venus enters Scorpio. Spooky season, definitely starting then for sure. Um, we get a 3/4 moon in Gemini on the 23rd. And On the 24th, let's see. Yeah, so sorry, the 23rd. I mean, honestly, like moons with Jupiter, that's nice. Uh, Mercury is going to be then entering into this Uranus-Pluto trine. And this will be the last bit of that. I would potentially consider the 24th kind of a mind your own business day. Moon is in their own domicile, but they're applying to Mars, and it's not like, I don't know, it's not super warm and fuzzy. Um, Good for protecting and doing that kind of Mars stuff, but kind of questionable vibes. And then on the 26th, right after Mercury gets done with the outer planets, they're going to enter into Libra and they're going to go through the same path that the sun just took. Now, at this point, too, on the 26th, when Mercury enters Libra, now they are no longer protected from the sun's beams. And so I would say, okay, it's the 14th of September today. Any mercurial things you need to get done, do it now, do it before the 26th. Make sure you get Virgo Mercury for that because after the 26th, they're going to be challenged for a little bit with just being under the sun's rays. They're going to do their cazimi, which will be cool. But yeah, this is where we get our dignity drop on our planet of communication, planning, travel, commerce. Um, yeah, all your logistical thingies. Get most of it as much as you can done between now and the 26th. On the 26th, we do get one of those nice Leo moons I was talking about. 26th, 27th, Leo moon. Mercury's kind of a little on the fritz, being with the South Node. Again, like some of this South Nodey stuff, when Mercury is under the beams, I mean, this is like an alchemical burning off process for Mercury topics, for Mercury things. Um, Take that for what you will. If you need a reset button or want a reset button for your Gemini topics, your Virgo house topics, maybe it'll even just have to do with the Libra house topics. But then on the 30th, when Mercury is in the heart of the sun, we're going to get that rebirth, or no, it's not a rebirth. It's actually the middle of their cycle, but there is like that alchemical fire burning off and purifying and clarifying and insight coming in on the 30th. It is actually the middle of Mercury's story. So if we want to, if you want to go back in your diary, August 18th, that whatever was going on around August 18th, if you can remember, look back in your emails, your journals, around there. That's when we had a rebirth for Mercury. That was a restart of Mercury's journey, Mercury's story. And so, really, like a rebirth, not just kind of a little reset, but a restart for the Virgo and Gemini parts. And now we're getting again kind of the middle of that Mercury journey, but they are going to be meeting the heart of the sun, and we will have a day on the 30th of some clarity that we might not have otherwise, specifically about house topics from Libra, Virgo, and Gemini. And let me see if I did. It perfects at 4:09 p.m. Central Time on the 30th at 8 degrees of Libra. The Hellenistic Mercury cazimi, so within 1 degree, that is from about 10 a.m. on the 29th of September. So that'll be Sunday, 10 a.m. until October 1st at about 10:30 p.m. So it spans the course of a couple days. And that's pretty much what I have to say about that. I mean, I guess it's worth noting that in this cazimi, Venus can't help. Venus can't see. So at the same time, even though there's no aspect between these two places, sometimes I do see still the conflation of topics, even if they're not like meshing together in ways that we like or that make total sense. You might be seeing a coming together of some Libra house topics with some Scorpio house topics. And I want us to pay attention because this is really like, even on the 30th, because this is what leads us into our next eclipse, which is on October 2nd. And that's going to be a new start, a new chapter opening up in Libra, new chapter opening up with house topics that Libra is with. So look to your chart, find out what house topics are with Libra, and that's where you can look for new chapters and big endings, big beginnings happening. I'll just use myself as an example again because it's right here. Aquarius rising, ninth house. Maybe I'll have new chapters in my mass communication, in what I publish. Maybe I'll finally kind of repolish my website that I've really wanted to repolish it for a while. Some stuff is kind of out of date. Long distance travel. Maybe there's a new chapter opening up there. Uh, Astrology. Maybe I'll have a new chapter opening up there. Maybe I'll start reading the I Ching again. I don't know. I took a break because I just needed more help and I didn't have the energy to pursue it, but I miss it. I don't know. So look and see what new things are kind of wanting to come forth already, even at the end of September. And I think that pretty much does it. I guess Malefic, Benefic Enclosures. I had mentioned one of them on, when the heck was it? I lost it. But no, there is another, and it's at the end of the month. And it's kind of an interesting one, actually. It's from September 27th when the moon is at 5 degrees of Leo. So let's actually close out September here. So when the moon is at 5 degrees of Leo, it's going to be in a square with Venus and applying to Venus. And then after that, it's going to be doing a sextile with Jupiter. Yep, for quite a while, for 34 hours, actually. And then it's interesting because then when the moon gets done with that, it'll be in Virgo and it'll start applying to a benefic again. It'll start applying to Venus through a sextile again. So I've not quite seen a lot like this. Let me actually get AstroSeek up and I can show you a little better what I mean. But it's a good looking few days at the end of the month if we were just going by lunar benefic enclosure, all other things aside. So yeah, it's this. There's three of them. Usually they come in two lines for the most, like you're always gonna see them like in two of them. Oh, here's a three-year. Or no, that's the one that I had. No, that was a different one. But yeah, mostly it's just like two aspects, two that are creating a little sandwich. It doesn't happen very often where it's like these kind of a like two different signs involved. So yeah, it ends up being really long. It ends up giving us quite a lot of good moon applying to benefic type of weather. September 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th. So we're going to get done with that Pluto stuff. And then it looks like kind of a nice note to end the month. So whatever is happening at the middle, I feel somewhat confident that like the new chapters that are opening up, we're at least, I think, at the end of the month going to feel, even if it's just temporary, feel somewhat okay. Just seeing that benefic lunar enclosure and having it extend for so many days. Um, I think that wraps it up. I think that wraps it up. And then I guess if we want to just close off a bit of like this lunation eclipse cycle, eclipse portal, eclipse window. I'm going to wait until the moon is in Scorpio. And that doesn't really happen until October 3rd, it looks like. Heck no, October 4th at about 7 in the morning Central Time. So really October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, all kind of days where I'm going to consider us in that astrological eclipse energy. And then, I mean, it's always interesting when like it starts with a full moon one and then ends with a new moon. And then it's like, is the next whole lunation cycle sprinkled with eclipse dust? I don't know. Maybe. I want to intuitively say it will be. Um, I could be wrong. But anytime there's an eclipse, it's like I feel like there's so many things that come up either internally that are really helpful or externally things are revealed. And so if we can just handle that kind of sense of urgency that I think Mars is going to be sending here, um, let's just make sure it's actually urgent. Let's see how urgent it is. And maybe we can quell Mars's fears and say, Mars, what do you need to feel comfortable right now while we're kind of getting our feet steady after this eclipse energy? Um, and maybe the answer is not just going fast and doing a bunch of stuff. Maybe going slower is okay. So check that before it gets wrecked. I think that's my last transit point. Gosh, I feel like I should say more about that lunar or the solar eclipse. Let's say a little bit more things about this. So new chapters, big beginnings and endings happening in the Libra place with the Libra house topics. We do have Mercury right up in here. So I kind of got to wonder if that's going to draw in some Mercury themes. So for this Capricorn rising, for instance, this is going to be happening in their 10th house of career, public life, life path. Maybe something about that new start has to do with ninth house, long distance travel, or something with labor, something with like their labor space. Maybe that new beginning, new start has to do with astrology, divination, advanced continuing education. Maybe it's someone who's going to change their website um, and put in that regular work. Maybe they're going to go and embark on a whole new life path related to new beliefs and health practices. Could be so many sixth and ninth house things coming into that new beginning in the life path for Capricorn rising. And then I also have to wonder if Venus ruling this eclipse, like I was mentioning, she can't see, but so it might not be like super obvious what the connection is, maybe, or take time to flesh out what the connection is. But there's also a connection to the Scorpio place in this new beginning and this chapter opening up or closing. And so, again, for this Capricorn rising, maybe it has to do with the groups they're a part of, new chapters with friends or groups, or chapters closing with friends or groups. Maybe their hopes, dreams, aspirations play into this somehow. So, there's more that we can bring in, I think, and it doesn't look like it's just solely in Libra. Some other things are going to get brought in. And then I guess maybe last thing. Um, I like that Jupiter can see the eclipse. So a little bit of bonification coming from that. And Saturn cannot see it. So that's helpful. We'll take it. Um, Thank you so much, everyone. Let me see if there's any final questions, concerns, any transits you wish I would have gone into more or that I skipped. Yeah, Mars-Saturn conjunction people can be quite good in a crisis. Let's see. I really hope Aquarius learns to speak. I mean, me too. It's me. I'm Aquarius. Uh, ooh, yeah, no, I don't have that. Reverend Kai is recommending a good I Ching book, which is from Benabel Wen. So I am gonna add that to my pile of books that are side-eyeing me from my shelf. I gotta tell you guys something embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be because learning is a whole process, and there's no way we can always be doing everything right. But when I started doing the I Ching, I was reading it upside down for like, I can't even tell you. I will not tell you how long I was reading it upside down. Oh man. So yeah. Um, Learning, if you're ever learning something and you find yourself to be incorrect, just remember, Claire, she read the I Ching upside down for so long that she won't even tell us how long. Um, oh my goodness. Yeah. So I need books. All right. I think that's it. I'm gonna, I think that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up. Final announcements. I mean, I'm doing, I'm still doing bookings like normal. I read for people. I read for up to 8 people a week. So I have 8 spots open every week around there. Sometimes it's a little less. I do this I mean, every 2 weeks. It's not exactly on the same day, but it's usually like the end of the month and about the middle of the month. I do my question and response times, which are at 7 p.m. Central Time every second Thursday of the month. So if you've got astrology questions, if you want to come hang out, that's where we can do that. And then I have my workshop for Jupiter and Gemini. You can check that out below. There's a link. Sign up for my newsletter. I send out once a month, so I'm not like spamming your inboxes or anything. But that's where you're gonna get like discount codes, updated events, anything that I'm offering. You'll get it sent right to your inbox once a month. Um, yeah, I'm just doing readings and loving it. Just loving doing readings. We're going into a new season. I'm gonna be doing different activities here. We got to take down the garden and do some of the last kind of lawn management. Um, I'm actually really looking forward to it. I have a really strong Mars, and I've found that I love yard work that involves anything with a blade. If I can like saw it, chop it, weed whack it, like sign me up. So I'm about to take care of a bush out front that I missed 6 months ago. It's not getting away from me this time. I'm very excited. I'm going to try to make it into a shape. If I could like do it all again, maybe I'd just go back to school to become like a topiary, like hedge trimmer person. Like really like I want to make like a bush into an elephant. That's what I want to do. And maybe that's what I'll do next time I choose a career. Um, Send me an email. Last thing, if money's an issue, if you would like a reading, if it's just not within your means, I actually have a lot of loopholes for this. I mean, the first thing is sign up for my newsletter because I have discounts, and that is always great. I am going to increase my prices probably in the next couple months. Hate to do it, and have to do it periodically, but there's always discounts. Additionally, I have a sliding scale. So if you are the victim of any kind of oppression, our systems and all of their permutations and forms, I've got a more kind of explicit list. But if that's you, you qualify and you can just email me, aligninglight@gmail.com, and we can just set something up manually and get something set up there for a cheaper price. So you can check that all out on my website to scroll down to the frequently asked questions, and it's all in there. I guess that is the final thing. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Thank you for your contributions and your questions. And I hope that you have, oh, hi, Dux Noctis. Hi, bye. Oh, hi, yes. I hope you all have a great rest of your month. Hang in there with the eclipses. hopefully whatever, like I feel like eclipses, this is a metaphor that I haven't used recently, is eclipses. Okay, think of a garden, and as I'm tearing up plants this fall, I'm going to be like really tilling up the soil. And there's going to be next spring, we're going to put like you know all kinds of nutrients and things in that soil to help it grow. But the whole process of like tilling up the soil and tearing out plants and putting fertilizer in there, it's all like a very energetic process. It's very tumultuous. It's not peaceful, but it's totally necessary, and it rebalances everything. It sets us back at homeostasis. And as the nodes move around every year and a half, they spend a year and a half kind of rebalancing a couple of signs. So we've had, pretty much since mid 2023 and until January of 2025, we're going to have the nodes in Aries and Libra. And it's like we've been tilling up the soil. Not the best time to plant seeds, but if you've made it through, you're fine. Hopefully the soil will be more chill after they move into Virgo and Pisces. So come January 2025, we're going to have a different area of our chart rebalanced, tilled back up. And it's almost like when the nodes are not in a sign, when the signs are free of the nodes for the other 17.5 years of that 19-year cycle. I think that's what it is. Might be wrong. I think that's right. It's like the garden just growing, and doing its thing. And then the nodes will return and they will rebalance everything again. So it's starting to be the time where we can start to reflect now even and look at the Aries and Libra parts of our chart and see how it has been rebalanced or reshaped, and notice what new things are going to be growing in that newly pruned and cultivated space after January of 2025. And then we can start to think, all right, the Virgo Pisces area of our charts, what house topics are there? What is out of balance that's about to become balanced again over a year and a half of tumultuousness? A year and a half of too much stuff going on in there. But all hopefully in order to, if we're going to do the in order to, I'll do the in order to here, in order to have homeostasis again afterwards, and have the landscape look more authentic, more nourished, more ready than ever to plant the best seeds you've ever planted. Like that's the idea, I think. So again, hang in there for one more set of eclipses across Aries and Libra. We're going to start to get a preview of much more what this Pisces Virgo rebalancing is going to be like over the next year and a half. Okay, I don't know why I felt compelled to jump right back into that, but it felt good and necessary. Okay, enjoy your 2 weeks. I will see you. I have not scheduled the next one, so keep your eye out for that. Otherwise, I will definitely see everyone. That's going to be October 10th at 7 p.m. right here. And I'm going to do the next one probably around like September 28th, 29th, 30th. Probably sometime in there, I'll do the next forecast sometime before October 1st. I'm probably going to be pretty close this time again. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great eclipse. Take care of yourself, drink water, hydrate, do the rain thing, be with your feelings if that's safe and cool for you. And